there's the show where you did like every brick has a story, and you went up and you said like I wouldn't say everything, like have you not learned anything in humanity, and there was this point where you say like let me see, please don't take us as a model, like the America and the Europe, and so this is what like I'm trying to ask to every artist, and so me and Aj we discuss about the Nepali aesthetics, and we can't deny that our influence it's global, and we take a lot from the Western culture as well. But like how the Japanese have their style, and you see something, and that's that's a style from Japan, and this artist is Japanese, the Scandinavian style, this and that. But this is my own dilemma as well. So, what do you think will get that Nepali aesthetics, or is it even necessary to put that aesthetics in artists' work to like give us that recognition that we are from Nepal? Is that even necessary?
I think it's natural. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's natural to have reference, from your culture, past and present, and that I would say that there is kind of a Nepali, so just like the Tibetan artists, Tibetan painters especially have become quite well known in the world, So I expect that Nepali painters, and there are some already, but I expect that this generation will become well known, like the other generation of Tibet has been well known for. And their work is definitely rooted. One of the things that I think is interesting about Asian art in general is there's more of a connection to creation, to creating pieces. It's not as much of a philosophical formula as it's turned into in the West, where the Beaux-Arts is, in the art schools are turning out a certain kind of artist who's really thinking about the market and everything in a certain way, and there are individuals who are connecting to the more inner selves and whatnot. But I think in Asia there's more, and in Africa too, and other countries that maybe didn't grow up with the contemporary art world in their face, and the analyzation of contemporary art and whatnot, and professors telling them. I think here there's a bit of a more personal touch in creating contemporary art, and so there I think in that sense there will be a Nepali influence for sure on art. And I think that that's what makes it interesting, and that's what also will form will interest the collectors and everything, and which all helps to make it grow still, because you need the audience, and you need a future as an artist.
So you do think that it's not necessary; it's natural.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that I don't know. I mean. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to be that way to create good art, interesting art, but I think it's a natural step in the process, and that as a group, there'll be, I think, a link to everything, to all the artists, and this link will be the outlook of Nepal, the Nepali approach to life, the Nepali, something Nepali in all the pieces, and I think that's good. Honestly, I think that's a.
Do you think like Nepali art is still confined to like a few, or has it changed a lot? Like even on, let's say, when we go out to the public, do you think like the public is still scared to ask questions, or?
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, but that's not just Nepal. That's in general. I mean. In fact, maybe people are more apt to ask the right questions. It depends on where, of course, who is the audience, But quite often, when you have too cultivated audience, no questions are asked because nobody wants to look bad in front of the artist and say, "What is that?" I mean, I don't understand what you're doing. But quite often, when you put work in front of an audience, a Nepali audience, or an Indian audience, or an audience that maybe is going to be more of this other factor, which are the people who don't go to the museums, who don't go, and those people are always like breath of fresh air for me because they just ask the most simplest questions, and I think this is good. It's a good thing to be able to ask what are you trying to say, you know. So yeah, I think here it's a small community, the art community here, but it's also attached to a bigger world. So I mean, you know, people, it's not just here. The collectors that come here from other countries are interested in the movements in Nepal and whatnot, the art in Nepal, what's going on in Nepal. So yeah, you have your small community of 50, 100 people who are turning around here. But like, for example, the last art fair that Sangeeta did, that was a large audience, and people weren't. I also do believe that because of people like Ashmina and Sujan, for contemporary culture in general, contemporary art, plastique, is more ahead of the game than other. I mean, because of the groundwork and all this kind of, you know, Ashmina's been doing performance for a long time, and installation's been going on here for a long time. People are more open to contemporary art than, say, contemporary architecture, for example, or contemporary dance, which doesn't exist at all here. Nobody knows what contemporary dance is, really. You know, all their dance is traditional. That's all there is to it. No, that's one thing I think Kathmandu is really lacking, is like somebody really to take the reins and start a contemporary dance troupe. And, you know, so in that sense, I think the public is a little bit more accustomed to seeing contemporary art in the street, in the public space, in the gallery spaces. So they are a little bit more like, okay, yeah, maybe they don't understand it 100%, but it's not that shocking. They've seen it before, in a sense, you know. So
do you think they would ask more if like how you say, if it was new and if it was, let's say, surprising or shocking? Because you say like whatever they are seeing is what the groundwork has already been done, let's say by Asmina, Ranjita, Sujan, Chitrakar. So
well, I mean, I know one thing for sure is that people need to lighten up on issues when it comes to artists, you know, about, you know, I mean, out of the graduating class of 7 that I took for the last 2 years, 1, 2, 3, 4 have been in trouble with the law, with the government because of their art. And I mean, I find that that's unacceptable for a secular government like this who claim to be open, and the people, you know, to have Sudeep take the heat for the earthquake because he painted a picture of the Kumari with a condom on the head. You know, I mean, nobody wants to even hear what the reason was for it, the masculine, feminine aspect, and the fact that people are using women as objects still in the community or whatnot, and even the challenge of what is a Kumari. I mean, okay, so it's not Saudi Arabia where you get your hands cut off, but still, I mean, come on. I mean, there's some people have to lighten up a little bit, and they have to accept the fact that if they create a contemporary, if they create an urban contemporary world like Kathmandu, then they have to allow the art to exist too in that sense. I mean, you know, to be afraid of stuff like that just once again shows that, and it's not really the public, it's more like the officials, but it still is the public, the Nirwari factors, the people who get, you know, I mean, there's still a huge attachment. Nobody really wants their belief system to be challenged, whether it be religion or political or whatnot. But I mean, art is also, that's what contemporary art does. Yeah. So I mean, they should be proud that their young generation, their artists are challenging and are doing things that are quite provocative and whatnot. And of course, I mean, it's the fear factor and whatnot. But I mean, those pieces that have been done have been purchased from collectors outside of Kathmandu. You know, so I understand, but that's also what the job of art is too. You know, I understand people are fearful of things they don't understand, or that you step on feet, but welcome to the contemporary world that has been created. And I mean, you know, if you have the urban sprawl, then this is a part of the urban sprawl. You just don't want malls and iPhones, you know. This is also culture, you know. Contemporary art is culture, and for Nepal to have a thriving contemporary art scene, they are lucky to have it, you know. But they don't quite understand that yet. So that's really where the work is too, you know. And who knows how that's going to proceed. But for sure, the artists are not going back, you know. So, I mean, they take the heat, and they're the first generation to take the heat in that sense, with the blasphemy cases and whatnot. And, you know, I mean, I know, like, Sudeep is still, like, a fugitive in a sense. But, you know, that's kind of legendary, too. You know, I mean, that's good. That's, you know, good for everybody. It's not fun, but it's also careers are made that way.
Yeah. I think I'll move on to the streets now, the street art. Like, I think you were here for the most part of the new street art culture, and you've also mentored most of the artists that work on the streets. Yeah, so I feel like we are in the midst of something amazing, but I don't know if like we have reached that level yet. Do you think what level are we at right now as like the Nepali art scene?
The street art scene here is grown a lot, considering that it didn't exist. It was non-existent 5-6 years ago. So I think the participants now have gone far. They're developing their own style, and they've definitely like done a lot to improve the urban landscape here. I mean, it's been enormous. Their contact, because of like Color Kathmandu and a few of the traveling contemporary or street artists who've passed here. There's been a much needed contact with the outside world. It's them coming here, people doing pieces here and whatnot. I think that's important. But still, there's been very little progress in the graffiti scene, because there's a big difference between art, urban art or street art, and graffiti. Graffiti is a very specific movement of the breakdown of the letter, the metamorphosis of words, and it was based in New York and grew out into the world to a phenomenon, and it's changed everything: fashion, design, the forms of graffiti and whatnot. And I mean, the whole battle of getting up and tags and everything, that hasn't really gone that far yet here, and because it takes a long time, and when you don't have the preceding masters to be able to apprentice yourself to, when you have to start on your own and become your own master, then it's very hard to do that. It's very complicated, graffiti, the breakdown of the letter, to develop your own style, and then can control, to be able to use a can in the finesse. A tag is a very complex thing. It's done rapidly, but it's done a million times before it's perfected, you know, with the nuances of the thin line and thick line, and developing an interesting tag. So those still need to progress here, but now there are Aditya and Sarada who are really trying to move in that direction, you know, on their own. It'll come eventually. I mean, one of the things that I was trying to do with the Root Down Festival was to give people access to the masters, you know, like Nunca was gonna come, and Mayor was gonna come here, and these like Mayor was the ambassador of the graffiti movement worldwide in a sense, and who started on the trains and everything. Nunca came later, but he was strong Brazilian graffiti artist before he started doing his big faces and murals, and I think even with Color Kathmandu, there wasn't really a graffiti presence. It was just art,
Murals.
street art
Yeah.
presence. So I think now for the people who are interested in that, there's development still to be done. But I mean, the streets are much better. I mean, the murals that have been done are, I mean, people are developing their styles, you know, for street art and characters and individuality, and I mean, it's done. It's enormous. I mean, what's been done in a short amount of time, the progression, the opening up of it's enormous, you know, and it's only going to continue. It's not going to go back, you know. Now, Kiran, Sharda, Aditya, and Sudeep to a lesser degree because he's more like not so much on the street art scene, but they'll be the role models for the next generation who will be interested in it. And so this is how it really goes, you know. I mean, it's exciting to do that kind of work, you know. It's very addictive, you know.
Yeah. Do you think, like, I feel like there was this time when everything, like the street art scene, I mean, besides tagging, you know, the murals and all these, like, came into the scene, like you say, in short time. But do you think that it has slowed down a bit? Because I feel like the artists who started it, like Aditya, Shraddha, and Kiran, and they seem to be getting busy with more commission pieces, and of course they have to do that as well. Do you think it has slowed down a bit? And could that, what I'm worried, like Dustin used to say, like, in 10 years time you'll either hate it or you love it, you know, like the street art movement. And could this just be a part of what's happening, and could it slow down and like not happen at all? Or do you think there is a future for street art?
There's a future, no doubt, and it's normal that there's these kind of ups and downs because there's so few participants. So I mean, everything is like hinged on a group of maybe 5, and so 6, something like that. So if they choose to do something else, then you see a difference. But there'll be new people getting involved, and those people will pick up the slack, and the other people will go back, and there'll be new challenges, and there'll be new approaches to, you know, I mean, all that and development. I don't really fear for the future of street art in Kathmandu. Everybody knows that it's the most refreshing thing that's been going on here for a while, you know. So I think there's no problem in all that, really. I think you have to allow the artists their time to develop what they want to do too, you know. And you can only, you know, I mean, it's important that you learn that you're not supposed to be paid all the time for doing stuff in the street, but it's also as important to realize that you can get paid for doing stuff in the street, and what you learn from the street can be applied in a lucrative manner, you know, of commissions and whatnot, because, you know, I mean, that's the reality of it, you know. I mean, yeah, graffiti, very soon the art world in the 80s embraced graffiti, and these guys were selling paintings for 3, 4, 5,000, you know. I mean, it was taking them 2 hours to do, 3 hours to do a canvas, you know, and they were still bombing on the streets and stuff, and they never ever expected that, you know. But I mean, of course, Andy Warhol was an important, but like also the Fashion Moda, who was one of the first galleries uptown. I mean, they embraced it because it was alive, you know. I mean, it was. And then it died off, and then it came back, you know. So, you know, for a while they were selling enormous paintings for enormous amounts for young, like 18, 20-year-old graffiti artists, and then the art world walked away from them, and all those people had to survive, and then they found that then the world came back because they realized that it was new energy coming into the scene, and it wasn't going to go away, and whether you call it vandalism or not and whatnot, and then of course the street art movement started, and with Shepherd Pharaoh and whatnot. I mean, when they started doing their big pieces and whatnot, people started to embrace a new kind of getting up in the street besides graffiti, and then it just exploded after that worldwide, you know, with Ojiminos and whatnot. I mean, what they were started to do, the sizes and everything. It's the most freshest, you know. I mean, there's gallery work and there's street work, but the pieces in the street, when it's the best pieces in the street are amazing pieces. They're some of the best work being created in painting. You know, it really helped painting, you know, in general. So I think here too, it's the same thing. You know, it's microcosm. Things are moving in, but still there'll be an embrace and a back on. But still, the new generation will always be fascinated, and that there'll be always young artists like, you know, Kieran, who came from just that's what he wanted to do, you know, and the next ones will come too, just like that, you know.
So there's a future for street art.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it.
I wanted to talk about like acceptance. The question is like, how necessary do you think is it to, you know, bridge the gap between generations to gain the acceptance on street? I mean, let's say we are working on the street, and there have been instances where, because the ones that are doing the work on the street are very few, and then the mass is a lot bigger. So do you think something can be done to bridge this gap between these two generations, that the bigger mass will, you know, slowly start to embrace? Or is it even necessary that the bigger mass tries to embrace, you know, the younger or the newer?
I think it's happening already. I mean, when you do something in the street, people appreciate it, you know. I mean, you don't have to like it doesn't have to be propaganda or patronizing, but I think people really appreciate, I mean, of all levels, street art. You know, I mean, it's something that they can look at. Maybe they don't understand all of the aspects being used, but still, I think they get a feeling that it's for them too. You know, I mean, it's not in the gallery. It's not like hidden away. I mean, the whole idea. First of all, here nobody even knows what galleries are here, hardly. You know, I mean, so it's all that's got to grow before there's a realization that there's even. You know, I mean, again, but I think street art is probably the best tool that you can use for broadening a larger base for art in general here. Anything out of the traditional aspect, you know, contemporary street art, whatever you want to call it, you know. So, you know, I mean, a lot of times now, it was like the banks and stuff where people weren't even really going into the banks before. Now, you know, there's money is coming into the valley. This land is worth a lot of money, so people have money now. They're driving around in $300,000, you know, 4-wheel drives and stuff here. I mean, it's crazy. So those people need to make an effort too, and realize that, you know. Okay, now cultivate your tastes so you can appreciate the finer things, you know. Art, contemporary art has always been, or art in general, you know. I mean, whether it be propaganda for the church or whatnot, it's always, you know, been attached to the higher, a certain level of community. Where street art is open more for all types of people in the communities, but it also is an educational tool for the people who have the money, who can support art in the long run, you know. So, yeah, I think this is part of the reason why people do street art and why it's important, and that it'll naturally keep on contributing that all the time, you know, to broaden the base, the awareness of that there is artists working amongst people in the masses, you know.
I wanted to talk about like you've always said to us like don't ever deface or put things on cultural pieces. I remember from the very beginning, and but sometimes like artists, no, it's like artists do the tagging, but then they are the copycats who end up, tagging in places. Like I saw this tag on a temple, like a small temple, and I mean, he had, I don't know who the person was, but they had written Neta 601, so it's the member of the parliament in 601. In a sense, that is like the thing that he's trying to give is, let's say he's aware of what's happening and he's trying to give a voice, but he ends up tagging in a wrong place. And do you think, like, from your experience, something like that can be curbed in the long term, like vandalism in sense of like artists are ethical and like they're sensible enough to like put it in proper places or the kind of places they want to, but then they are like the copycats?
No, man, the nature of the beast when it comes to graffiti is like, graffiti wasn't a moral philosophy. It was an amoral philosophy from the beginning, which was to get up on everything everywhere as much as you could. And so there was no, like, I mean, even in like graffiti, yeah, there's like some unwritten laws, like you shouldn't tag a church, but that doesn't mean that churches don't get tagged. Same thing's going to happen here. It's a part of the development of graffiti, and it's, even if you want to stop it, you're not going to stop it. You can't stop it. You can just only like do damage control and clean up the stuff, when it does happen, so it doesn't keep happening. Get awareness out there in the Beaux-Arts, in the art schools, that okay, if you're going to do graffiti, be aware, have respect for the culture, the traditions and stuff. But I mean, that's a tough one to control, really. I mean, it's just, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop it. It's gonna happen. It's coming. I mean, it's like punk rock or something. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's the nature of the beast. I mean, all you can do is like just try. A lot of things come from the Beaux-Arts. The best ones come from art schools. The best, a lot of young art students start with graffiti too and move. So there you have a chance of controlling that. I mean, that's, and then, but it's any kid who sees tags and thinks it's cool, it's gonna pick up a can and they're gonna go for it. Yeah, I mean, already there's problems that need to be taught in the Nepali community about civil duty, about not throwing your trash in the neighbors' yards and not throwing trash in the rivers. Those things are like, that's just a broad aspect of what there's the education having to be done about the respect, civil respect in general. I mean, graffiti is a small aspect in a very, very large problem that I see in Nepal, which is the idea of your civil duty, as like a community, your part in the community, that's, I think, and that once there's efforts in that direction, then the rest will kind of fall in place, I mean. Of course you don't do that. Of course you don't do that. Because we're supposed to respect Mother Nature, create creatures of all kind. Humans, of course, they fit into the creatures of all kind, but not just humans. I mean, social. Like noise, and things like that. I mean, not everybody is on the same platform, but there's a big educational effort that needs to be made in that sense.
You've mentored a lot of artists, and who is the favorite among the ones you've mentored?
Oh, that's not a fair comment. Well, of course, Shahada,
yay,
Aditya, and Sudeep, but Hitman also, and Kieran, I think, shows a lot of enormous potential. Manish, I'm happy to see he's gone so far because of his efforts and everything. I think Sujan is still one of the most important artists in Kathmandu, not just his ability as a teacher and as somebody who can inspire, but also as an artist. I think he's one of the most dynamic artists. Ashmina for performance too, I think I really think that Sujan has probably done more than anybody else because his commitment to education and that he's sacrificed so much of his own personal time of what he could be doing as an artist to be an educator. And when he does do his work, it's always poignant and it's always interesting, and so that's what I think. I mean, those are.
So now you're going back to France, and so we will be seeing a lot more works coming out from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I'm alive. But yeah, I feel like I'm going into a new phase. And I've been down since the earthquake. I haven't been doing anything, and since Tongal, what I did here took so much. There was a lull. There was a kind of a low point there because I did so much, and then I what am I gonna do? And I did some pieces at the house, and then I was wondering, should I do an exhibition here? And I was planning on doing an exhibition, and then I just decided to concentrate on what I was going to do in Paris, and then the earthquake hit, and I stopped working altogether, and I haven't started working again. So it's been almost 3 months, which is really starting to play havoc on my mental capacity, because it's like if I don't really work, I start to get a little unnerved. I mean, it's the only reason why. I mean, it's like I sacrificed all my life up to this point, and it's justifiable what I've done, how I've lived up to this point. But the moment that I stop working, it's hard to justify my life as without a job and everything. And so if I'm not making art, then I find that I'm really having a hard time with myself, my art, who I am, what I'm supposed to be doing, and whatnot. So I feel like this 3 months, I mean, in a sense, what I did with the relief work became an artistic statement. I mean, I tried writing. I used Facebook in a new way as a journal. I was keeping a day-to-day thing where it was like a countdown in reverse. And when I felt it was over, I ended it as that. And so I've always wanted to write. I've always dreamed of writing. You always want to be what we're not, I mean, and my heroes were writers more than artists. So it was the first time I really took it seriously, in a sense. And even though they were just short blogs, it's really, I mean, I've written before, but I think maybe it's the first time I presented it to a larger audience. So I feel like it was a creative process, very much a creative process. The time that I spent building the shelters, before that going to Iltago and digging out the village and everything, and the fact that it ended in a way too with the end of the countdown of the days in reverse. 62 was the last day, I think. But now, I mean, it's like I'm really feeling the urge to get back to work. Yeah, it's really time, and I think I'll be back with a friend. I'll share a studio with him. His name is Toxic. He was Basquiat's best friend, and he was original graffiti artist, and it'll be nice to have that camaraderie again in a studio, and to be amongst my peers that are doing better in the marketplace than me, and so therefore give me a little bit a little bit more of a goal to reach where they are, and to have my work accepted in their circles and whatnot. It's a combat. It's going to be a combat because I've stayed out of it, and now it's time to climb into it. It's now or never, really. I mean, it's like, okay, you want to play the distant. I try to tell Sudeep, don't do what I did, man. Don't be like this distant person who's like aloof and mysterious, and no, you're better off like sooner than later realizing that it's also a career and a way of supporting yourself, and take it seriously, all those aspects as well as the creative aspect of it, so I think I'm ready, now you'll see. I mean, it might be, it'll be, of course, on internet and whatnot.
That's all. So, I think we're at the end. And at the end, like, any last words to the creative community and the arts community here before you leave? I mean, I know you'll be coming back. That's for sure. But
I just want to say thank you for everything. And it's been an honor to be a part of the scene, and it's been great to see the development. And I just I'm happy to see people to be further along than when I got here. The small group that I helped, I'm happy to see their development. That makes me more happy than anything else.
Thank you for talking to us and like giving your time. And I know you are very busy, so I mean, I think you will be a very important part in like when our history is written. You'll also be a very important part in our creative history, and all of the things that you've said and done and taught, and it's had a very big impact on our lives. I bet Sarda is very sure of that. And like looking at your work, it gives like a new sense of hope, and it just like you don't have to be like everybody else. You can be your own person. I ended up looking at the interview by Dawes, who is your friend, who's like had a very good impact on you, and so thank you so much for talking to us, and good luck with everything you do in France. And I mean, we'll look forward to all of your works through the internet, and do come back again.
Me too. I'll be watching you guys just as much, on this side, and I'll be back. Who knows? There could be I don't think my story is over here. So I think I'll be back for a residency or something here eventually. My dream would be to half the year in Pokhara, half the year in Marseille in the south of France. That's like
your dream life. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. And that was Karl Knapp. And please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And have a good day. Thank you.